Good afternoon, my name is Bill Shriver from Merchant's Garden. We're going to talk to you about produce safety today, and we're going to talk about worker health, hygiene, and training. First, we're going to talk about what we're going to learn, the objectives we're going to learn today. We're going to identify the potential routes of contamination associated with workers that result in contamination of fresh fruit and vegetables in produce fields and pack houses and greenhouses. We'll identify adult learning concepts that should be considered when developing training programs, and we'll also describe topics that must include worker training programs and what resources are needed to provide to reduce the risk of fresh produce and contaminations. We'll also describe how to monitor the facility and facilities that are available and maintain the appropriate health and hygiene practices and begin following by everyone on the farm. We'll describe corrective actions that can be taken when health and hygiene policies are not allowed or when facilities are not maintained. Identify the records and record keeping and tools that could be used to monitor and manage worker health, hygiene training program. Each module will begin with assessing the risks, the sides, outlines, and risks posed by workers. So we'll talk about human pathogens that can be spread through many routes. However, fecal-oral route is most common. This happens if a worker does not wash their hands after using the toilet and then handles produce and contaminant. I mean, that's one of the most important things, is make sure you're washing your hands before you come to work, and then wash your hands before you touch produce. Pathogens can also spread through saliva, if you cough, mucus, sneeze, contact with other contaminated surfaces. For example, hands may become contaminated while eating, smoking, or sneezing. Most workers must wash their hands at times when their hands may have become contaminated. So you're going to want to wash your hands after you go to the restroom, or if you touch your face or something like that. Worker training should include how to wash your hands, and workers should be given opportunities to practice skill. In our bathrooms, we have signs up how to wash your hands. Day one, we show them how to wash their hands, how to prepare themselves for work. Workers must know what to do if they are ill or injured themselves while working. We always tell them, hey, if you're not feeling good, please don't come into work today, or if you get injured, please notify us so we can do this. So we can reduce the risk of human pathogens like blood. If they cut themselves, we'll want to know, hey, where did you get cut? Did it contaminate any of the produce? And other bodily fluids, like coughing right there. I coughed in my hands. Probably need to go wash my hands. In any of these areas, in the greenhouse, or when we're packing out the lettuce. Remember that workers in training they receive are very important, since workers play a key role in the farm food safety. So you've got to train them. You got to train them on day one. Talk about it even in the hiring process. An example: outbreak, hepatitis A in green onions. Not sure, but as long as you do your best to try to clean your hands, and wear masks, wear gloves, chances of food contamination will be reduced. Here are ways workers can introduce contaminated food. Fecal, poop can be contaminated produce directly. If workers go to the bathroom in the field, or if there's a leak in the sewage system, workers' hands can also cross-contaminate produce if they do not wash their hands after using the toilet, or returning from a break, or after eating or smoking, and then handling produce. Another example of indirect contamination can occur when workers' clothing is contaminated by animal feces that can be transmitted to cover the produce, food, contact surfaces. When the workers and animals are handling manure, workers may need to use protective garments and then remove that clothing before they come into contact with food. Injuries, if they cut themselves, you're going to want to make sure that that fluid doesn't come in contact with the produce. Also, it's important to stress worker safety on the farm. You can contaminate tools, equipment, if proper hygiene practices are not followed. Importance of training workers. Fresh fruits and vegetables often receive no additional processing, such as cooking or so contamination with pathogens can result in illness when the produce is consumed. Workers need to use food safety practices every day to reduce produce safety risks. Food safety practices are learned, so training is key to successful implementation. Fresh fruit and vegetables often do not receive a kill step, such as processing or cooking before they are consumed. Pathogens that contaminate produce can cause foodborne illnesses if they are consumed. Workers are a crucial part of any farm food safety plan because they are responsible for using food safety practices every day while they work. Food safety practices are learned, so training is key to successful implementation. Training can present challenges when implementing the farm's food safety plan. Time is money, so taking time to train workers means an investment in food safety. Making time for training may mean training right when workers are hired or communicating time each week or committing time each week to remind workers about key food safety issues. Any training should be provided in the worker's native language. This includes any written materials provided during the training. Keep in mind that some workers may not be able to read, even if material are printed in their native languages. Using pictures or showing workers what they need to do may be more effective than using written material. Most people are visual learners, so this is good for everyone attending the training. Yeah, we always show them, this is how you wash your hands. You got to do it this way. Take time to do that is very important. So some farms bring an additional laborer at heights of harvest when things are busiest or on the farm. Even during these times, new workers must be trained. So it's best to plan for workers training before things get too busy. So always train. Don't say, oh, we're going to train once a month or something. Always train when you hire someone. As an example of a variable of hygiene practice, toilet paper may end up in the garbage can or on the floor next to the toilet. Some workers are from countries where the plumbing is not sufficient to allow toilet paper to be disposed of in a toilet. So to avoid plumbing problems, they do not put toilet paper in the toilet. This heightens a hygiene practice that is different from the U.S. expectations. Understand that workers may have different hygiene practices. Address these expectations directly in training so workers know what to do while working on the farm or in the packing area. Many people, including workers, have preconceived notions about food safety. Understanding their current knowledge and beliefs can help address and dispel myths or reinforce core knowledge about why food safety policies and practices are important to follow. You gotta just stress it all the time. Wash your hands, hit them up with questions. What do you do if you go to break? When you come back to work, what do you do? Just continually keep hitting them up with these questions and training. Adults need to understand why food safety practices are needed, and training should be relevant to their jobs and their daily tasks. Outline clear expectations, detailed practices, effective training material are present throughout the variety of training. Adults learn best when it's clear why the information, why are we teaching you this? Why do you need to know this? For this reason, it's important to explain the practices, reduce risk, and how these practices are relevant to each worker's job in order to complete them correctly. For the training to be effective, it should Include reasons why food safety is relevant to workers and their jobs. Outline clear expectations and detailed practices that reduce risk throughout the variety of training media and methods. Through posters, verbal training. Yeah, we have posters out for how to wash hands. We train them, we walk through it, and we constantly remind employees the importance of this. Provide an opportunity for participants to practice skill they are expected to use. I mean, it sounds funny, but wash your hands together. Practice it with them. Include interactive and visual learning opportunities such as walking through the steps at a specific task or showing verbal short videos. Incorporate principles of adult education will make the training more effective. Communication. Good communication supports food safety by improving risk and identification and reduction. Trained workers know how to identify food safety risks, how to reduce the risks they find, how to tell if they see food safety risks they cannot minimize or eliminate, that their food safety concerns will be taken seriously. Good communication is a two-way street, meaning everyone has the responsibility to share what they know and listen when others have information to share. Since workers handle fresh produce and are working in the field and packing areas daily, they are a valuable part of the food safety team, since they can identify risks if they understand what risks they might see. Workers should understand that communicating food safety risks is a critical part of doing their job and reducing or eliminating a potential problem. Workers should be comfortable talking to their supervisors, managers, and know that their concerns will be taken seriously. If workers report a problem and it is not addressed, they may be less likely to report problems in the future. You got to follow up. If they tell you got a problem, you got to address the problem and take care of it. All workers that handle or contact produce need to be trained, and even people that supervise. So we train all of our workers from the top to the bottom to receive food safety training. It's just important. Everyone who works on the farm should understand the company's food safety policies. It's part of working here to know the policy. Paid workers, volunteers, interns, pesticide applicators, and even family members can impact the safety of fresh produce. Anyone on the farm does not wash their hands properly can contaminate produce and food contact surfaces through direct contact, or spread contamination indirectly to others who touch doorknobs or food saving. So it's important to train everybody. Anybody that comes on your farm, whether it's a family member, contractor, you got to wash your hands. You got to follow our food safety practices. It doesn't matter who you are. We got to, protect the services, protect the product, protect everyone from food safety issues. Everyone needs this training. And implementing food safety practices is a company-wide task. No one's above it, and no one's below it. Everyone needs to know how to identify and reduce food safety practices they're responsible for doing. How to report food safety. Who do you talk to? How do you bring it up to someone? And make sure that the person that they bring it up to is actually following through on the issues. Owners, managers, supervisors should set good examples and follow the company policies. Training all members of the farm on food safety helps each employee know their responsibilities and helps identify potential risks that someone else may not see. Remember, everyone should be actively involved in identifying risks and reducing risks. Most importantly, owners, managers, and supervisors need to be committed to food safety and set good examples for workers and visitors to ensure that the policies are followed. In addition to training requirements for supervisors, for those that handle covered produce during covered activities, require that at least one supervisor from the farm complete food safety training, or at least equivalent to the standard curriculum recognized by the FDA. This curriculum satisfies that requirement. Visitors to the farm must be made aware of food safety practices by setting the farm, and visitors must access to the toilet and washing hand facilities. Policies can be reviewed with visitors, though the use of posters, handouts, short policy summaries, or verbals when they enter the farm. We have postings all over the place. Wash your hands. You know, all visitors must sign in with the office, and you know, we talk to them about food safety when they come here. Keep items to review with volunteers. Understand that parts of the farm and packing areas they can enter. You know, we don't let them just walk around anywhere. They're supervised. You know, if any worker finds someone who's not supervised, they're trained to bring them to the supervisor's office, so they're not to protect the food. We don't know what they're going to do or where they've been, or you know where their hands have touched. You know, no pets are allowed. You know, food in certain areas only in the break rooms. All those things. Growers must make visitors aware of the farm's food safety policies. Provide access to toilet and hand wash facilities. Other key information for visitors should include areas of the farm they are allowed to visit, the importance of not visiting the farm when ill, how to wash their hands, instructions to keep pets at home. Training programs must include principles of food hygiene and food safety, recognizing symptoms of foodborne illnesses, and the importance of personal hygiene for all personnel and visitors. Other training and relevant to workers' jobs. All personnel who handle covered produce during covered activities or supervise the conduct of such activities must receive training that include all of the following: principles of food hygiene and food safety, the importance of health and personal hygiene for all personnel and visitors, including recognizing symptoms of health conditions that is reasonably likely to result in contamination of covered produce or food contact surfaces with microorganisms of public health significance, and the standards established by the FDA in subpart C through O of this part of are applicable to employees' job responsibilities. You know, these principles of food hygiene and safety are very important, and recognizing the symptoms of foodborne illnesses, the importance of personal hygiene for all personnel and visitors. A successful program will have these attributes. Training is required upon hiring, regardless when they arrive on the farm, and then at least once annually after hiring. Hey, it's Bill Shriver again, coming back to you here on some training. The level of education and training and experience necessary for supervised workers will vary depending on the job they have, and the supervisor in the operations needs different type of skill and knowledge levels, as well as the packaging area. Since workers may not have formal education, provide training in particular might be important. While on-the-job training and experience at a farm gives employees certain skills necessary to perform their jobs, it does not necessarily convey the information about food safety. So it's real important that we communicate what food safety is. And some members of your crew will need specific training focused on food safety. All personnel, temporary, part-time, seasonal, contract, who handle our food and contact services, who are engaged in the supervision of them, must have a combination of education, training, and experience necessary to perform their assigned duties in a manner that ensures compliance with food safety. In addition, all workers must take measures to identify and not harvest any produce that is reasonably likely to be contaminated, including produce that is visually contaminated with animal feces or droppings, or produce was dropped on the ground. Dropped covered produce is covered produce that drops to the ground before harvest. Drop covered produce does not include root crops that grow underground. Crops that grow on the ground, such as cantaloupe, or produce that is intentionally dropped to the ground as part of harvesting doesn't account. You know. Growers should be aware that there are maybe other unique challenges on the farm that require specialized training in addition to regulatory requirements. So, each farm needs to assess their situation and provide the appropriate food safety training. Food safety is it's not just for a day, but it should be every day. Signs, reminders can help workers remember to implement food safety practices every day, especially if they are placed in high traffic areas, such as locations where workers are present, restrooms, break areas, package areas, on the way into their work area. It's always good to have postings up wherever they're congregating. Review sessions can be conducted weekly, daily. It's always important to remind them about food safety in the morning before they start their crew, once a week. Just keep on top of it. This might involve a quick review, a flip book, a poster, or just a few practices that workers should follow. Covering different topics using a diverse material will keep workers' attention during training. As a farm owner and a manager, it's important to realize the need to provide the following resources. If toilet paper, water, soap, paper towels are not provided, workers will not be able to properly wash their hands, go to the toilet, and follow food safety practices. It's critical to check that stuff every day. It's also important to provide garbage cans, first aid kits, and areas where workers can take breaks without introducing contaminants to the produce area. Always have a separate break area, not next to where you're going to have the food. Keep in mind, all small farms, these facilities can be located inside the home office as long as the same resources are provided. Reusable towels are not allowed because of the risk of transferring pathogens from one person to another. Single-use paper towels are the one acceptable option for workers to use to dry their hands. Just get some paper towels. Don't use like a bath towel. That's what we're talking about there. OSHA requires one toilet and one hand washing facility per every 20 employees within a quarter mile of their working area. We have just a short distance to our restroom, and we only have 3 or 4 employees, so we're good. But if you had a huge operation, that would be something you'd want to make sure of, that you hit for every 20 workers you have a toilet. And if you're taking them out to the field, you got to bring something within a quarter mile of where you're working. Monitoring on a regular schedule helps ensure these requirements are met. You got to keep track of it every Friday or once a week. Whatever you write you're going to do, you got to do it. You got to make sure that your restrooms are clean. And fill out the records. Don't just do it once in a while. Fill it out on the day you say you're going to do it. Do what you say you're going to do. Schedules may mean to be adjusted during the season for cleaning and restroom facilities, more or less. If you got a ton of workers, you're going to have to clean the thing maybe more than once a day. If you only have a few workers, you might only have to clean it once a month. So it all depends on the size of your operation and how many people are using the restrooms. They're going to get thirsty, so you got to make sure there's potable drinking water. It should be provided. This helps reduce the risk of dehydration and exhaustion. OSHA requires that potable water shall be provided in place locations readily accessible to all employees. All of our water is potable here, but we also provide several different locations where they can receive water. In the break area, out in the farm, we provide water bottles, but only water should be provided in the produce area. If workers are allowed to bring their own water containers, make sure they are plastic, not glass, and that they know where they can refill their containers. You always want to check your state and local laws to make sure that your work, health, and safety issues. Some states allow hydration fluids such as Gatorade or other specific requirements and send workers home if they get too hot. We live in the desert, so we want them to hydrate all the time. You're not supposed to eat, chew gum, or use tobacco in areas where there's food, where you're harvesting. However, drinking beverages permitted. You got to drink. It's the desert. Produce safety rule has specific requirements for training and for practices that all workers must follow. It's important that growers understand what they are required to include in what they need to provide that workers can effectively follow their training program. It is equally critical that growers understand what practices workers are expected to use while they are working in the produce area. It's important to maintain personal cleanliness, avoid contact with animals and other working animals, maintain gloves and sanitary condition if used, remove or cover jewelry can't be worn, not eating chewing gum or tobacco in areas where we're harvesting produce, notify their supervisor if they're ill, wash their hands, maintain adequate personal cleanliness, to protect against contamination of covered produce and food contact surfaces. Avoid contact with animals and other working animals, and take appropriate steps to minimize the likelihood of contamination of covered produce and direct contact with animals. Wash hands. Discuss on slides when most hands must be washed. Maintain gloves in a contact and sanitary condition. Remove or cover hard jewelry that cannot be adequately cleaned or sanitized during periods in which covered produce is handled. Not eating chewing gum or using tobacco products in the area used for covered activity. Other important subjects to include in training programs are: what do you do if they become ill or experience an injury while working, how to locate the first aid kit, how to handle cuts or injuries, and how to report an illness or injury. Specific food safety policies and practices that apply to their daily tasks. Who to tell if they see a food safety risk, that their managers will take this seriously. Consider positive reinforcement for reporting a food safety risk or follow safety procedures. For example, farm hats for those who set good examples and follow outlined procedures. But most hand washing after using the toilet, before starting or returning to work, before and after eating and smoking, before putting on gloves, after touching animals and animal waste, any other times hands become contaminated. Proper hand washing: wet hands with water, apply soap and lather. Be sure to wash the front and backs of hands as well as between the fingers. Rub hands together at least 20 seconds. Rinse thoroughly with clean water. Dry with a paper towel. Turn off faucet with used towel. Throw paper towel away. All urination and defecation should be done in a toilet, never in the field or near produce areas. Toilet paper should be disposed of in the toilet, not in the garbage can or on the floor. Always wash hands after using the toilet. Work clothes. Clean clothes should be worn. Footwear cleanliness is important. Designated footwear helps prevent cross-contamination. The gloves, if worn, must be changed when they become contaminated or torn. If reusable gloves are used, clean often or as needed. Aprons, gloves, and food safety equipment should be removed before using the toilet and should be stored in a clean, designated area when not used. Worker illness. Workers who are sick or show signs of illness can contaminate fresh produce. Ill workers must not handle fresh produce. Symptoms of illness can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, or jaundice, or there's other stuff that could consider illness. Just let them know, hey, if you're sick, we don't need you to come to work. It's not going to be held against you. If you're injured, workers' injuries may pose a food risk. Show them where the first aid kit is. Ours is located in the restroom, and there's one out here on the desk by the work area. Clean and bandage all wounds. If the wound is on the hand, a glove should be worn to create a double barrier. Discard any produce that may have been contaminated. Clean and sanitize any items that came in contact with bodily fluids and report the illness. Monitoring workers' health and hygiene practice in sanitation facilities is critical to knowing if the food safety plan is working to reduce risk. Develop and monitor a program may include designing individuals to check specific areas of the farm, such as checking to make sure the bathrooms are cleaned and well stocked, or observing employees' behavior. Record keeping is crucial to monitor, since allowing actions to be documented to make sure they are being done properly and on time. Corrective actions. Workers are not following food safety practices, develop rewards to encourage positive practices, implement deterrents for poor practices. Facilities are not clean, restocked, or broken. Sanitation company contacted. You got to keep these things clean, so they'll use them. Record keeping. When it comes to record keeping for workers' health and hygiene and training, there are few things that must be documented. Required that the records be kept according to the requirements in the subpart, included the date, the training, the topics covered, and then the individuals trained. Other records that should be kept include facility monitoring, including cleaning and stocking of toilet paper and hand washing facilities, as well as maintaining first aid kits. Workers' illness and injury reports. Remember, there are lots of templates available. Do not make record keeping more difficult than it needs to be. Document actions taken to support workers' health, hygiene, and training on the farm, such as worker training, monitoring, restocking toilet facilities, illness, and restocking of first aids.